Okay, here you can see I've drilled some holes on my pattern. That's one way you can use to cut the profile out. So you can drill holes and you can come back and you can connect these holes with a hacksaw. That's the way I used to do it. Now I like to do it all on an angle grinder. It's a bit louder, a bit messier, but gets the job done pretty quick. So I'm just going to put my safety gear on, put this in the vise, and cut it out for you. Okay, so now we have the basic shape cut out. It's probably really hot, so I'm going to dunk this in some water. There, we have our basic outline of the knife. It's still pretty hot. The angle grinder gets things very, very hot. It also leaves the air pretty nasty right after. So right after I cut it out with the angle grinder, what I like to do is usually open up the doors and take lunch or something and let it cool out, let it blow out. All right, so here you can see I've got two machines. They are both Ryobi 4x36 belt sanders. If you ask just about anybody in the knife making community, they'll tell you that they're not suited to knife making at all. And to an extent, I agree with that, but it's what I have, and so I make it work. And so here you can see I've got one horizontal and one in the vertical position. You don't need a machine for each. They do go down and up. They're adjustable. I just happen to have two. So I leave one down and I leave one up. I actually have a third one here in front of the camera where I took the platen off, this whole arm assembly, and I use it just for the disc sander. And for these two, I took the disc sander off so I could dedicate the horsepower just to the wheel, to the belt here. And so here you can see these red belts. These are ceramic belts. They're really good for steel and metal. and you can get them online at the abrasive supply houses. I like the ceramic. They're much better than the ones you get at Home Depot, the aluminum oxide, and they cost about the same. So it's a win-win. I also like the zirconium, which comes in blue and green usually, and they're really good on wood and not half bad on metal. So usually what I get is 36 grit zirconium and 36 grit ceramic, and then 120 grit zirconium, which I use for metal and wood, and it usually works pretty good for me. I don't have to get any other belts. So you can also see here this platform I built, just 2x8 dimensional lumber. I put a piece of tile on top of it so it's nice and flat, made sure it was level, and it works really good for working on this vertical sander here. And so this is what I'll use to clean up the profile on this knife we've got here. You can already kind of make out the basic shape, so this paper outline we did isn't totally necessary anymore, especially if the paper starts coming off. We could still follow the lines, they're still visible, but at this point, when you practice enough, you can get good lines and just kind of wing it and eyeball it on here. So one thing that is necessary when you're adjusting this is you want to get a square, and you want to make sure that this is square so that you get a nice perpendicular profile. So I'm just going to adjust that on this and get my safety stuff on, and I'll profile it out. Okay, so here we are at the spindle sander, and I'm just going to use this spindle here to true up this corner here and all along here. One important thing to note is that when you go from here to here, both these sections you can just kind of push into it and it's going to give you that nice curve. But in between there, you want to be very, very light with the pressure, else you're going to get a little ding in there. That's going to be hard to get out. And I've got my trusty calipers here because when I put these grooves in here, I'm going to measure them and make sure that they're equal width. And I just find that to be more visually pleasing when those are equal. Yeah, and you can see I try to grind off a little bit of the paper, which is kind of getting in the way. That's why usually I don't like to use glue down patterns, but I just thought I would show you guys that in case you have any of the patterns that I plan on including with the DVD. So yeah. Now, I also want to make sure that the bottom of my belly here is also centered between these two lines here. So I probably should have already checked for that, but I'll just go ahead and check it again. about even, but just want to even out this belly a little bit. It kind of looks like it's a little heavy down here. Okay, so I think I've got it pretty much profiled out here on the bottom. You know, you might have noticed it's going like this. What I was doing is I was getting those little, I was making sure this was smooth. There wasn't any inconsistencies. And another thing I try and do is, it's a very small, subtle visual thing, but I always make sure that this is parallel with this, and this is just, if you look down, it's just a little bit over. I just think that gives it a nicer look. It's just me though. So just got it. We've got it just about profiled out now. So now we want to make sure that our piece of steel is flat, because we're going to drill holes and grind next. And you just put it on a flat surface, and if it kind of wobbles up and down one way, then it's not flat, and you can tell by looking down it as well. So when you're hammering, I advise caution, because it's really easy to overdo it, and it's really easy to just mess it up. It's also really easy to not, if you know what you're doing. So when it's not quite straight, and that's pretty common when you get a bar of steel for it to be a little bent. One side will be convex and one side will be concave, and you just want to lay that concave side down and give it a couple of light taps, and then that's going to flatten it. And if you keep hammering it, then that concave side is going to go convex, and it's just kind of lift up as you hammer it. So don't do it too much, because then, well, it'll be warped the other way, and that's not good. Yep, it went a little bit the other way. That's pretty good for now. And it should go without saying, but you kind of want your steel to be as straight as possible, especially before you do the heat treat. After you do the heat treat, it becomes a lot more difficult. So I just try and get it straight and keep it straight as well as I can throughout the whole process. And that's a profile knife right there. Yeah, feels pretty good. We're ready to drill the holes.